Okay, 6.5, Part 2, Example 2 tells us to find the angle theta in degrees between the vectors where v is equal to 2i plus 3j and vector w is equal to negative 3i plus 4j. Round the answer to the nearest tenth of a degree. Alright, so now we're after the angle. So we're going to use the formula for cosine of theta. So we know that cosine of theta, and I'm going to write it out here, is equal to v dot w over the magnitude of vector v times the magnitude of vector w. Alright, so we know that vector v is 2i plus 3j, and dot vector w is negative 3i plus 4j. Oops, hold on a second. Okay, and we're going to put this over the magnitude of vector v, which remember vector v is just 2i plus 3j, times the magnitude of vector w, which is a negative 3i plus 4j. Whoops. Alright, so I'm going to write the numerator in the vector components. And so we know then that cosine of theta is equal to vector v that has components of 2, 3, dot vector w that has components of negative 3, 4, over. And then remember how to find the magnitude? That's where we take the square root of a squared plus b squared. So this is going to be the square root, or the magnitude of vector v, I should say, is going to be equal to the square root of 2 squared plus 3 squared. And this is going to be multiplied by the magnitude of vector w, which then is going to be the square root of the negative 3 squared plus 4 squared. Alright, so I'm going to bring this up here. So we have cosine of theta is equal to, in the numerator, remember to do the dot product, you're going to multiply the first two components, so 2 times negative 3, and add the multiplication of the second two components, so 3 times 4, over, and in the denominator, let's do this. So the first one gives me the square root of 2 squared is 4, plus 3 squared is 9, and that's going to be times the square root, negative 3 squared is 9, plus 4 squared is 16. And so I'm just going to take this step by step here. In the numerator, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, plus 3 times 4 is 12, over, in the denominator, I got the square root of 4 plus 9 is 13, times the square root of 9 plus 16, which is 25. So cosine of theta equals, in the numerator, negative 6 plus 12 is 6, over, in the denominator, I've got the square root of 13 times 5. So just to kind of simplify this up, then cosine of theta is going to be equal to 6 over 5 square roots of 13. So how do we find theta? Well, remember, if we're looking for the angle, we're going to use the inverse. So the inverse cosine of 6 over 5 square roots of 13. It doesn't matter that the square root of 13 is still in the denominator. It's not our final answer. You don't have to rationalize it here. Let your calculator do the work for you. Alright, so we're going to plug this in our calculator, and we're going to round it to the nearest tenth of a degree. So we're going to do the inverse cosine of 6 divided by 5 square roots of 13. You might want to put the 5 square roots of 13 in its own parenthesis there. And that is approximately 70.6 degrees. And so we have found our theta.